Okay, so Basque style cheesecake is kind of like regular cheesecake's badass cousin who couldn't give less of a Forget all the rules of making traditional cheesecake, like the water bath, worrying about cracks, and on and on and on. Instead, Basque cheesecake celebrates imperfection. Because of that, it's almost impossible to screw up. The cake is baked in a really hot oven and rapidly rises, kind of like a souffle. The top cracks and the outside turns a deeply burnished brown, yet somehow the inside stays so light and so creamy. Today, let me show you how to make this, my favorite cheesecake. Then we'll take it one step further by marbling in 3 delicious flavor variations. I'll also share some tips on flavoring the cake however you'd like. First up, preheat the oven to 475 with the rack positioned in the top third of the oven. I'm making a 6-inch cake today, but I'll also put the details for an 8-inch cake in the description below. The cake pan needs to be at least 3 inches tall. Stack 2 sheets of parchment paper perpendicular to each other. Gently press the paper into the pan. Allow the sides of the paper to naturally crease and fold. This will give the cheesecake its signature rustic charm. Add room temperature softened cream cheese into a large mixing bowl. Use a hand mixer to beat on medium speed until the cream cheese is soft and fluffy. You can also make this recipe in a stand mixer using the paddle attachment. In order to reduce waste, my recipe is designed to use up whole blocks of cream cheese. Funny thing though, here in Canada where we mostly use the metric system, a block of cream cheese weighs 250 grams. In the United States though, a regular block is 8 ounces or around 226 grams. To account for this difference, I've created 2 versions of my recipe, metric and imperial, for both the 6-inch and the 8-inch sizes. So please check out the written recipe in the description for the actual ingredient amounts. Make sure that you use the right recipe for your cake pan size and your country's measuring system. Next, add sugar to the bowl. Mix on medium until the sugar is fully dissolved into the cream cheese. This will take about a minute or 2. Scrape the bowl down halfway through. Keep mixing until you can't feel any more sugar granules. Once all the sugar is dissolved, add in eggs one at a time. Thoroughly mix in each egg before adding the next one. Throw in salt and vanilla extract, mix on low to combine. With the mixer still going, slowly stream in cream. Then just keep mixing until the batter is smooth. Finally, sift in all-purpose flour. Use a spatula to fold the flour into the batter until it's thoroughly combined. Be sure to scrape down the bowl again in the process. I know it seems like a lot of scraping, but cream cheese loves to leave lumps, so we're trying to minimize that as much as possible. With that said, don't worry if there are still some small lumps in the batter. That's to be expected. And just like that, the batter is done. The batter can be poured into the cake pan and baked just like this for a plain cheesecake. However, we can add whatever flavor we want to the cake and create a beautiful marbled interior at the same time. Let's talk through some of the possibilities. First up, powders. I've got cocoa powder and matcha powder here. They work great because they're full of flavor and naturally provide color. Being dry powders though, they'll affect the texture of the cake if added straight in. I'll show you how to account for this in just a moment. Next, let's call these bakery emulsions. I've only got ube here, but there are many different ones out there. They're basically flavor extracts that also contain color. These will be the easiest to work with because they're kind of an all-in-one solution. Citrus flavors can be added with the zest of the fruit or with pure extracts or oils. Color will have to be added separately. This can either be a gel food color or, in the case of lemon, some turmeric will create a nice yellow color. Lastly, really any flavored extract will work. Get creative here. Pair your favorite flavor with your favorite color. Again, these are just some of my flavor suggestions. Please comment below and let me know what kind of cheesecake you're gonna make for yourself. Divide the batter into 3 slightly different sized portions. A slightly larger portion, a medium portion, and a slightly smaller portion. Just eyeball it, there's no need to be totally exact. This largest portion will be left plain white. The medium portion will get a moderate amount of color and flavor. The smallest portion will make the most saturated and concentrated. For the ube cake, I'm slowly adding in drops of the emulsion until the colors get to be where I want them. Instead of leaving the larger portion plain, I added just a couple drops to neutralize the slightly yellow batter, which will help it blend better into the other purples. For matcha and chocolate, use 2 tablespoons powder for a 6-inch cake or 3 tablespoons for an 8-inch cake. We're gonna make a paste out of the powders. Add the powder to a larger bowl than you think you'll need. Alternate between adding splashes of cream and whisking. Go slow at first and be patient. It'll start out super lumpy, but keep adding more cream as needed. Eventually it'll smooth out. We're aiming for a moderately thick paste here. I ended up using about a half cup of cream for 2 tablespoons of powder. Add a third of the paste to the medium portion of the batter and the rest to the smallest portion. Mix it all up well until the colors are evenly combined. Pour the batter starting from darkest to lightest. When pouring subsequent colors, go from a height and pour quickly. Gravity will pull the batter down to the very bottom of the pan and allow it to gently swirl into the other colors. I found that this method creates the cleanest color separation. Gently swirl just the very surface of the cake batter to create a nice marble pattern, but don't go too far down. We don't want to disturb the color layers below. Carefully place the cake onto a baking tray and transfer to the preheated oven. Using a baking tray here is great practice for any cake. It helps with transporting in and out of the oven, preventing any chance of denting the cake with clumsy oven mitts. Set a timer for 30 minutes. Just watch how the cake rises in the oven. Isn't that so satisfying? After half an hour, start checking in on the cake. It's done once the top is cracked, edges nicely browned, and the center still wobbly but not overly liquidy. If it's not quite there yet, keep on baking, checking every 5 minutes until the cake is done. Here you have total control over the final texture of the cake. If you like a gooier cheesecake, pull it out when the entire surface is still quite wobbly. If you're looking for a firmer, more traditional cheesecake texture, keep on baking until just the center section is slightly wobbly when the cake is shaken. Personally, I like this cheesecake somewhere in the middle, soft but not too gooey. I ended up baking my 6-inch cakes for around 35 minutes or so. Once out of the oven, the cake needs to cool completely in the pan. If you try to take it out while still warm, it'll just fall apart. Let it cool at room temperature for 2 hours minimum. During this time, the center of the cheesecake, which has risen so much, will dramatically collapse, creating the signature concave top of the Basque cheesecake. When the cake is cooled, it can be served right away or covered and placed in the fridge until ready to serve. Let the cake come back to room temperature for an hour or so before eating. Use the parchment to lift the cake out of the pan. Gently peel back the parchment to reveal the beautiful, craggy sides of the cake. Carefully transfer to a serving plate. For clean slices, dunk your knife into very hot water. The heat will help the knife cut through the cake like butter. Remember to wipe the knife clean with a damp towel between each cut. I love how each cake has its own personality, the colors mixing and layering in different ways. The flavors are present yet harmonious, still allowing the tanginess of the cream cheese to come across. The center of the cheesecake is soft and barely set, so creamy and luscious. That browned exterior acts like a crust. It adds texture and flavor. The browning process generates many new flavor compounds, from nutty smoky flavors to a slight bitterness, which really takes the cake to a more sophisticated level. The browning also interacts with any added flavors. Somehow the quote-unquote burnt notes really intensify the chocolate flavor, creating some serious smoky complexity. The matcha cake is classic matcha flavor, slightly bitter, green, and grassy. Really, it almost tastes like a matcha latte to me. It's a refreshing and grown-up twist on cheesecake. On the other hand, the ube cake is sweet and delightful. Ube comes from a purple yam, and the flavor is very popular in the Philippines. If you've never had it, it's kind of hard to describe. Some people say that it tastes like vanilla meets coconut meets pistachio. For me, I taste toasted sugar and get a cookies and cream vibe. Whatever it is, it's delicious and I absolutely love it. And of course, the plain cheesecake it's fantastic. It's delicious on its own, but I also love having it with whipped cream and fresh raspberries. The tart, juicy berries explode and mingle with the light, luscious cream, which goes perfectly with the velvety cheesecake. And yeah, there you have it. My favorite cheesecake, Basque style. Seriously, I don't make any other type of cheesecake nowadays. I just don't see the point. This one is so easy. You get all of the cheesecake goodness without any of the fuss. I really hope that you give this recipe a try, whether making it plain, using one of the flavor variations that I suggested, or putting your own spin on it. If you do, please comment below and let me know how it goes. I don't know, try this cake. You'll like it, I promise. Thank you for hanging out with me today in my kitchen. I'll see you again very soon. Before you go, here are 2 more show-stopping dessert recipes that I'm sure you'll fall in love with.